Hello everyone, I am the storyteller and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now, the old mansion had been abandoned for decades, its grandeur and beauty slowly being consumed by the passing of time. Its towering spires and crumbling balconies loomed over the overgrown garden, a husk of its former majesty. Yet, there was something irresistible about its aura, something that beckoned to the curious and the bold. And I, admittedly, was both. I had heard the stories, tales of strange occurrences, and whispers of the supernatural, but I didn't believe in ghosts, at least not until that night. I pushed open the creaking front door, stepping into the mansion's dim interior. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts, disturbed by my presence. The floorboards groaned beneath my weight, their protests echoing through the vast empty halls. The mansion smelled of mildew and decay, a clinging odor that seemed to seep into my very clothes. My flashlight flickered, casting long shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper and cobweb-draped chandeliers. Room after room revealed the same decay. Once pristine furniture now lay broken and covered in dust. Paintings hung crookedly on the walls, their subjects' eyes seeming to follow me as I moved. Despite the eerie atmosphere, I felt an odd pull toward the back of the house, an almost magnetic force guiding my steps. It led me to a heavy oak door, slightly ajar, revealing a sliver of darkness beyond. As I pushed the door open, I found myself standing in the kitchen. Unlike the other rooms, this space seemed untouched by time. It was old-fashioned, yes, with its worn stone floors and wooden cabinets, but everything was eerily intact. The sink was filled with stagnant, murky water, and the stove was coated in a thick layer of grime, yet there was an unsettling sense of preservation. The air was thick and oppressive, carrying a thick layer of grime, yet there was an unsettling sense of preservation. The air was thick and oppressive, carrying a thick layer of grime, yet there was an unsettling sense of preservation. The air was thick and oppressive, carrying a thick layer of grime, yet there was an unsettling sense of preservation. The air was thick and oppressive, carrying a thick layer of grime. Yet who is this? But it was the table that drew my attention. In the center of the room stood a large wooden table, its surface marred with deep scratches and scars. A single chair was positioned at its head, as though someone had been sitting there, waiting. Something about the chair made my skin crawl. It seemed to emanate a strange energy, a presence that felt almost alive. I approached the table slowly, my footsteps echoing in the silence. That's when I saw it. A small, leather-bound book, lying open in the center of the table. Its pages were yellowed and brittle, the ink faded with age. The writing was in a script I didn't recognize, the characters jagged and alien. I reached out to touch it, my fingers trembling. When the text began to shift before my eyes, the strange symbols twisted and reformed, aligning themselves into words I could understand. "Welcome to my kitchen," the book read. "You'll never leave." A chill ran down my spine, and I instinctively stepped back. My heart pounded in my chest as I glanced around the room, suddenly hyper-aware of my surroundings. The walls seemed to press in on me, the shadows deepening and twisting into grotesque shapes. Panic clawed at my throat, and I turned to leave, but my feet refused to move. It was as if the floor had turned to quicksand, trapping me in place. Then I heard it. A low, rasping voice that seemed to come from all around me. "You'll cook for me," it said, the words drawn out and dripping with malice. "You'll cook for me, and you'll never leave." The voice sent a jolt of terror through me, and I struggled against whatever force was holding me in place. My flashlight flickered violently before going out completely, plunging the kitchen into darkness. The only light now came from the faint glow of the book, its pages illuminated with an eerie, pulsating light. I could feel the room shifting around me. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting as though the kitchen itself were alive. The wooden cabinets groaned, their doors creaking open and shut as if they were whispering secrets to each other. The stove hissed, releasing a puff of acrid smoke that made my eyes water. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice trembling. The only response was a deep, guttural laugh that echoed through the room, reverberating in my skull. The table began to shake, the book sliding toward me as though pushed by an unseen hand. The words on the pages shifted once more, forming a new message. "Your time has come," I screamed, the sound swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Desperation surged through me, and I wrenched my feet free from the invisible grip holding me. I stumbled backward, my hands clawing at the walls as I searched for the door. But the kitchen had changed. The door I had entered through was gone, replaced by a solid wall of stone. The room seemed to stretch and twist, the corners bending in impossible angles. "You can't leave," the voice rasped. "You belong to me now." The table's single chair scraped across the floor, spinning to face me. I froze as I saw a figure materialize in the chair, its form flickering like a distorted image on an old television. It was humanoid, but wrong. Its body unnaturally thin and its face obscured by shadows. The figure leaned forward, its hollow eyes locking onto mine. "Sit," it commanded, its voice dripping with authority. My legs moved of their own accord, dragging me toward the chair. I fought against the invisible force, but it was too strong. I collapsed into the seat, my body trembling as the figure leaned closer. Its breath was cold against my skin, carrying the stench of rot. The book floated from the table, hovering before me. The pages turned on their own, stopping at a blank page. A quill appeared in my hand, the sharp tip pricking my finger. Blood welled up, dripping onto the page and forming words. "I am yours." "Good," the figure hissed. "Now you will cook." The room shifted again, the walls peeling away to reveal rows of grotesque ingredients. Jars filled with unidentifiable organs lined the shelves, their contents pulsating as though still alive. The stove roared to life, its flames unnaturally blue. The figure gestured toward the ingredients, its skeletal hand pointing to a recipe scrawled on the wall in dripping red letters. "Begin," it commanded. I had no choice. My hands moved as though possessed, reaching for the jars and extracting their contents. The ingredients were slimy and cold, their textures sending shivers of revulsion through me. I chopped and stirred, the sound of the knife against the wooden cutting board echoing like a death knell. The scent of the concoction was foul, a nauseating mix of decay and sulfur. As I worked, the figure watched, its hollow eyes unblinking. The whispers returned, growing louder and more frantic. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, pleading and warning all at once. "Stop! You must stop!" But I couldn't stop. The figure's gaze held me captive, its presence an oppressive weight that crushed any thought of rebellion. The recipe was nearing completion, the final step requiring a drop of my blood. I hesitated, the knife hovering over my finger. "Do it," the figure growled, its voice like the rumble of distant thunder. Tears streamed down my face as I pressed the blade to my skin. The blood dripped into the pot, and the mixture roared to life, bubbling and churning with unnatural vigor. The figure let out a satisfied sigh, its form growing more solid as it absorbed the energy from the concoction. "You've done well," it said, its voice almost tender. "But your work is far from over." The stove flared and the room began to shift once more. I realized with dawning horror that I was trapped in an endless cycle, forced to cook for this malevolent entity for all eternity. The kitchen had claimed me, its latest prisoner in a long line of unfortunate souls. As the darkness closed in around me, I heard the whispers fade into silence, leaving me alone with the figure. Its hollow eyes bore into mine, and I knew that I would never leave this place. The kitchen was alive, and it had found its newest victim.